Let's see here. Ooh. Oh my. What is cracking, everybody? It's Man here, and today we're going to be taking a quick peek at Team Indie. Team Indie is a platform game recently released on Steam by Brightside Games for $12.99. Now, calling Team Indie a platform game is like calling a box a box. It's a box no matter the size or color, but either way, it just might have some interesting things inside. Or it could be filled with weak old tuna. The main thing behind Team Indie is that not only does it create its own characters for its story, but it also includes multiple characters from other indie games, each with their own mechanics somewhat similar to what they were in their own games. It's just about every gamer's dream come true to have some of their favorite video game stars all in one place, and for Team Indie, it works out okay. You see, each character has their own thing about them, and they're heavily relied upon to keep the gameplay interesting. You've got some bigger indie characters such as Tim from Braid and Commander Video from the BIT.TRIP runner games, and they act just about as well as they did in their own previous titles. But you also have some very interesting characters like Jitters from the great Jitters Pudding Panic, as well as the guy from Super Crate Box, and even a few characters that I don't recognize. Overall, there are 10 characters in Team Indie, including Marvin the Cat, who was specifically made by Brightside for this game. For the moment, we're only going to focus on Marvin, as he, I feel, is one of, if not the core problem with Team Indie. Like I said before, Team Indie is a platform game, a 2D platformer to be precise. While it's cool to see some of these non-2D platform characters work in the new environment, Marvin is the most generically generic platform character you've probably ever seen. He can walk, and he can jump. That's it. That's not necessarily a bad thing on its own, of course, but the game makes it clear narratively that Marvin is the main character, and you'll be playing as him at some point in every single level, unlike the other characters. While this can be a good thing because it does make a simple and basic character that players can both get used to and relate to a little bit, it also has the effect of making the game's basic gameplay feel kind of generic, and almost makes you feel like it's just another platform game, and that the other characters are a bit of a gimmick, as they're only used to aid Marvin on his quest. Team Indie is broken into many different levels. Each level is specifically designed for specific characters that will be found within that level. Find a portrait of a character in a level, and it'll instantly switch to that character as soon as you walk into it. Play as different characters, switching between them at different portraits, until you find a yellow cat symbol that allows you to switch back to Marvin. Then get Marvin to the exit. That's the basic structure for every single level in the game. The only difference is being whose portraits you'll run into in each level. Portraits also act as checkpoints, so if you die, and everyone dies in one hit in this game regardless of how they acted in their actual games, but if you do die, you don't have to completely restart the level, as it'll just go back to the last portrait that you had run into. Portraits are also used for keeping a record of what you did as the character that you switched to when you ran into it. Touching a yellow cat symbol not only allows you to play as Marvin again, but will also rewind back to when you grabbed the first portrait and replay what you just did as one of the indie characters. This is actually kind of interesting because it makes the game more about timing than necessarily pixel-perfect platforming, although there are some pixel-perfect platforming sections that you will have to deal with. You have to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time as Marvin when following a previous recording. The problem with this, though, is that it makes pretty much all of the game focused around timing. You have to constantly guess how your actions will play back in the recording when playing as a previous character, so that the current person you're playing as doesn't end up dying. You have to make sure that your recordings do everything at the right time and allot enough space that you will be taking up so that you don't end up running into something that will kill you. There is nothing that represents any of the other characters when you're playing as a different character. So big characters like Clunk or characters like Marvin, you have to constantly remember how big their hitboxes are, so you make sure that you're out of the right space. And you also have to constantly remember everybody's speed to make sure that you're getting everything done at the right, correct moment. Thankfully, the game does have kind of rewind feature, but unfortunately, the rewind feature only takes you back to the previous portrait checkpoint, no matter how much crap is in between. So if you're playing a level, and you've already played as multiple characters, and you have to go back to playing as Marvin or somebody else, and you find out that your timing's off by just a little bit, you gotta redo the whole thing all over again from square one, which can be very, very annoying. Now, to be fair, this changes level by level, as some levels are more focused on timing than other ones, so it really depends on which one you're particularly playing as to how much this will be a problem. Speaking of levels, though, Team Indie has some strange level design. You've got a mix of levels that are linear and pretty straightforward, as well as more puzzle-like levels where I'm not quite sure if what I'm doing is the correct thing that I need to be doing while I'm doing it. One of the things that hinder the level design is the fact that you can activate portraits and yellow cat icons at any time just by touching them, even if you have yet to do what you needed to do as the previous character. This can be even more frustrating when it comes to grabbing all of the collectibles, as some portraits only exist to aid in grabbing the gems or medals instead of moving forward towards the level's exit. You do have some interesting design with the collectibles though, as there's gems that only indie characters can grab and gems that only Marvin can grab. And going throughout the levels grabbing all the different medals that you can then look at later on in its particular section is really kind of cool. But the way they are incorporated in some of the levels and how characters can get to places they're not necessarily supposed to be able to go can make it really difficult to actually move forward in levels. Something I can't complain about, though, are the graphics and the music, as they're filled with all kinds of lovely goodness. Team Indie has a strange thing about it where it's both creative and not creative at the exact same time. It's creative in how it mixes the many different mechanics and characters together, but sometimes it feels like the game has too many mechanics and struggles to keep all of them relevant. It's not creative in how it kind of relies on these other characters from other games to really try to bring in interest or do anything interesting within the game, as the game's own character, Marvin, is really not all that interesting or fun to play as on his own. There is one word that I can strongly use to describe this game's mechanics, and that word is finicky. Characters like Marvin and Jitters work fine mechanically, but that's not always the case. Dust Girl, finicky. Clunk, finicky. Black Fluff Ball, finicky. Tiny, really freaking finicky. Even boss fights, which themselves are references to boss fights from other games, such as Castle Crashers and Super Meat Boy, are themselves finicky. The mechanics feel like they need a lot of polish, and they just, unfortunately, don't have them right now. When I think about what Team Indie's trying to do, I can't help but think about Super Meat Boy and how it handles characters and mechanics. While Meat Boy is the main character of Super Meat Boy, you can also unlock other characters from other games, like Commander Video and even Tim. All of these characters had their own unique mechanics as well, but they also had Meat Boy's basic mechanics to fall back upon. Mechanics that the game was already specifically built around, and mechanics that were already fun, interesting, and a bit unique in how they operated. When it comes down to it, just about everything in Team Indie mechanically falls back onto Marvin. He's your basic character, and he's where everything starts. Everything has to be designed for Marvin, since he is the main character of the game. But he's a character who's designed to be as basic and generic of a platform character as possible, and thus the game ends up feeling like a basic, generic platform game, no matter who you end up putting in it. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for watching this quick peek at Team Indie, now available on Steam for $12.99 and developed by Brightside Games. Please let me know what you think of the game or this video in the comments section, and let me know what characters you would like to see in a game together. Thanks for watching, I've been Mega Pie Man, and I'll talk to you guys later. Boss battle all over again. Crow also shows its mobile roots but the lack of polish in its presentation. Textures are extremely blurry and many animations look stiff and awkward to say the least. Lighting